Hello, good evening, welcome to our front. Tonight, we are taking you to the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, where the big business of the day is the approval of the ministers that were previously vetted. These ministers and some deputy ministers, the list is ready. Today was almost laid in the House and the debate commenced. The first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, who really chairs that appointments committee, started giving out the very details of this all-important list of ministers and deputy ministers who were recently appointed to be vetted. That has been held up. In the last almost 3 hours, the Parliament has been on break. This happened after the Leader of Parliament, that's the Speaker, had to suspend the House. There was a conversation between the minority and majority. We know those two thorny issues they are unable to agree on. And these thorny issues are, first, the approval of this ministerial list. And the understanding is that government also expects the passage of 3 financial bills laid before the Parliament. And these bills, if I should let you in on that, are so crucial to our quest to get an IMF program, which the President is so convinced we'll get before the end of this month. We'll be following all of that action in the Parliament House today and we'll bring you the latest development on that. But now, I should be able to bring to your attention these bills. The bills are the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Duty Amendment Bill, and the Growth and Sustainability Amendment Bill. They're all expected to generate some 4 billion annually when passed. This is to make sure that we have enough money coming in from the level of taxes, which will reduce or increase rather the number of people in the country who are paying taxes. Apart from doing that, it will also increase the revenue we are getting from taxes. Ultimately, it's supposed to let us see or let the IMF see some action from the people of this republic, an indication that we are interested in building up that space and making sure that we generate enough revenue. That is so critical, according to the finance minister, as he indicated not long ago. Also, even the president had actually asked the parliament to consider passing this bill. But the minority in Ghana's parliament first told everybody that they want the president rather to cut down on the numbers of ministers. So they are not going to approve these ministers that have been vetted and are yet to be approved today. That's the crux of the current stalemate that's happening in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. We will take you to Parliament. We will bring you the latest development from that particular house. We will get to understand why this is so entrenched between the two sides on the matter, as government is pushing very hard to get that done. Let me take you to Parliament House. The Member of Parliament for Asante Atim North is the Honorable Andy Kwame Apiakubi. He will join me now for a conversation on what's currently happening in that house. Honorable, you're welcome to our front. I hope you are doing well this evening.
I'm very good. And you and yourself?
If you're able to unmute, I'm sure I would hear you better and get to appreciate what's happening in the Parliament. I can see you already in your office, not on the floor of Parliament. As I've been trying to bring you up to speed on what's happening in the Parliament, there's kind of a stalemate. They took a break for some negotiation and conversation to happen because the majority and the minority cannot agree on whether or not to pass or approve the ministerial list first. Secondly, the approval of those 3 critical bills is also on the table, which has not happened. And I just listed these bills to you. Specifically, we are talking about the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Duty Amendment Bill, and the Growth and Sustainability Amendment Bill, which is expected to bring us up 4 billion. And these are prior approval or conditional issues, which government tells us is supposed to help us get an IMF deal. But first, I did tell you about the Member of Parliament who is joining me from Parliament, and that is the Honorable Andy Kwame Apiakubi. Honorable, you're welcome to our front.
Thank you very much, my brother. I hope you're doing well.
Well, if it's not a problem with my connection here, I still struggle to hear the MP on this one. So we should be able to get that line fixed so that we can get to hear him on that. Okay, I'm told that now it's been fixed and we can get to that. Honorable, well, now that we have the technical problems resolved, I hope you are doing well this evening.
Yes, I'm very good. I'm very good. I hope you're doing well too.
Yes, I can hear you now. The difficulty in people who have been following Parliament since the beginning of the day is that they were unsure what has happened in that house. Can you tell us why Parliament is unable since morning to approve the ministers and also pass the bill?
Let me tell you, my brother, in the morning we have had people going to caucus and take decisions. Indeed, the leadership of the House, they've gone into meetings to try and reach a consensus to come back to the plenary for us to proceed thereon. Unfortunately, when there seemed to have been some consensus and it came to House, members for the minority side started raising issues about the report from the appointment committee. Some of them said that they have not received copies of the report as members of parliament, and the speaker tried to intervene to say that the report was filed 2 weeks ago, and for which reason members ought to have had copies. Speaker continued to say that copies of the report were served on us through our letterboxes in the mails room, and that if anybody wanted copies, they could have gone to the mails room to pick it. The argument continued that notwithstanding the speaker's position that members have been served in our pigeonholes, some members have still not been able to access the copy. So the speaker was minded to step it down and give some time for members to read through upon being served with copies of the report. And the speaker also intimated that it is rather not the fault of the office of the mails room or the table office not to have served members, but probably for reasons known to members of parliament or not known to the table office, some members were complaining that they have not received copies. So Speaker gave them the opportunity to read through and let us continue with proceedings of the day. And notwithstanding such break, members still felt that we ought not to take those the report of the appointments committee, and we're praying that we adjourn for tomorrow and come back. The speaker thought that we needed to meet as a full house. We call that committee of the whole, where all members of parliament will meet and be presided over by maybe a deputy speaker for us to see how we can build consensus. So in the discussions, we both sides try to prefer reasons why we have to continue, otherwise why we have to maybe adjourn. At the end of the day, the decision of the whole house was that let's adjourn to 6 o'clock, by which time those who would not have read will have opportunity of reading for us to reconvene and continue the business of the day. So we are saying that we will reconvene at 6 o'clock. So I'm getting ready to go back to the house for us to continue the business of the day.
That's an interesting development, but we know that this conversation will happen. The very first part, the approval of the ministers, the minority had stated categorically that they were not going to be part of this approval of the ministers. They had insisted that the president should rather reduce the numbers, and that will reflect a decision to actually cut down on the expenditure of the state. Do you get the impression that this is why you are stalling and the procedural issues that are being raised are just a ruse?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, Honorable.
Yes. Well, that's the opinion of some members of the minority, that the size of government is too big and government ought to be.
Well, I'm afraid I cannot hear Yeah, I think it's better now. Yes, there was a slight challenge with your sound. I am convinced we are back to normal, and I'm glad to have you on.
Yes. Yes, so now that is a position taken by the minority, but in any case, one would not say that at this time we have a Minister for Agriculture and Minister for Trade. Are they saying that we don't need a Minister for Agriculture or we don't need a Minister for Trade or what? But if it is a legitimate concern of the minority, I'm sure they can table that request and file it with the President for consideration. But at this point in time, if they want to be selective, I'm sure not to frustrate the appointment and the confirmation of a Minister of Trade and a Minister of Agriculture for once. And then we will look at the other deputy ministers if they raise issues. One of them, the Minister of State for Finance, is already a deputy minister and being transferred to the Finance Ministry. So he is not going to increase the numbers. But the others, if they want to complain about the others, they can also file their complaints and let it be considered by the President. But I believe that in the cases of Trade Minister and Minister of Agriculture, some people have left the positions and we need to fill.
Well, I have, yeah. So when we go back, we'll be in a position to confirm those two positions. Well, if I'm hearing you right, the Member of Parliament for Asante-Atim North is trying to explain to me that the earlier issues raised by the minority in Ghana's Parliament, that they should cut back. Well, I'm having some slight challenges trying to get that line stabilized. So, okay, I'm told you're back on. Honorable, you're explaining to me the agreement on who should be approved and who should not be immediately approved for them to commence the work. You say that there is some consensus that at least trade and agric should actually be approved immediately.
We are talking amongst with the need and for Chief Agriculture Minister to be also appointed. And we also see that they are replacing resigned ministers and therefore will not increase the numbers. So we don't have.
Well, it's still
about the Agric Minister and the Trade Minister. In respect of the Minister of State for Finance, he is already a Deputy Minister.
Well, as you can see, some members of Parliament already started trooping him back into the House. The conversation, as we have it right now, is that they are trying to see which ones they can leave out. My guest joining us from the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana is the Member of Parliament for Asante-Atim North, Andy Kwame Appiah-Kubi, and he's been explaining to me why there appears to be some agreement to leave out some of the portfolios or which ones ought to be approved immediately. That's the clarification I'm seeking from the Member of Parliament. If that Zoom connection is restored to a very perfect range, we sure should be able to get that level of clarification from him. Also on the business and the table for Parliament to consider tonight is the issue about what we should do with those three important bills. The bills have been labeled, they have been labeled as the most important bills to help this government get a deal done. And the deal we are talking about here is the IMF deal. The understanding is that the bills are supposed to ensure that we get on the right pedestal. So I see on the floor of Parliament, the Member of Parliament, Deputy Majority Leader speaking. I'm unsure if the proceedings have already commenced. All right, so I should be able to speak to, yes, the Member of Parliament on this one. So I've also been joined by the whole Central MP, the Honorable Benjamin Podo, who will also give us a bit of appreciation of why all these matters are important. But Honorable Andy Appiah-Kubi, you were explaining to me whether or not the various ministers, those who have been vetted, will be approved today, and the conversations currently happening between you in the majority and those in the minority.
Well, like I was saying, the two portfolios, Minister for Agriculture, Minister for Trade, these are portfolios that we had ministers before who have resigned. So we are replacing those ministers, and I don't see anybody challenging the need for appointment of such ministers. And I was also saying that the third minister is already a deputy minister being transferred to the finance ministry. So I don't see any numbers being increased in respect of these three. I'm saying, and from the conversation on the floor of the House, what I'm realizing is that people are rather worried about the new appointments, not the substitutions we are making. And therefore, I don't see us having problems with that. So when we go back, I think that we'll be able to confirm these three without trouble. And then let's see how the voting in respect of the others, the results the voting will bring. But I'm very convinced that we will be able to vote and confirm them if we have to vote. But I'm sure the discussions behind closed doors will bring us to a consensus position where we can confirm all of them. But that is the hope and the belief that it will happen. So let's go back to Parliament and see the position taken by the two sides as they conferred, and let's see how we progress from here. But I'm very hopeful that we will do it.
Let me beg of you to hold on a second for me and bring your colleague, the Member of Parliament for Ho Central, into the conversation. The Honorable Benjamin Podo. Honorable, why is the minority holding up the approval of ministers you have vetted and ministers who are needed to work in, more importantly, the ministries of agric, ministries of trade, as we know it to be, and the Minister of State going to that Ministry of Finance? Why are you holding up the approval? Honorable Podo.
This question has already been answered even before the vetting was done. Our position is that the government is too large and the president needs to trim down so that we can make some savings. It's part of the conditions that the IMF is looking for. And if you remember the German ambassador making a statement during a press conference, he also made reference to the fact that, look, your government is bigger than my home country government. So we all need to help the president to reduce the size of government and therefore its attendant higher expenditure. You see, my colleague is saying that the people are they are already MPs. When you go out as a minister, it is not only MP expenditure that is incurred by government. Ministers incur additional expenditures. We are not talking of the basic salary. They incur additional expenditures. All ministers have their MP vehicle as well as ministerial vehicle. All of them have. And they even have two. You have the 4x4 and you have the salute. I don't know whether it's for all of them, but I know many of them have both the 4x4 and the salute. And then they move around a lot. So expenditures are far in excess of what is spent on an MP. In any case, it is not the state that maintains the vehicle of the MP. It is not the state that fuels MP's vehicle. But the minister's vehicle is fueled by the state. So there is far more expenditure on a minister than on an MP. So you cannot equate the expenditure on an MP to that of a minister. To say that, oh, the president is already a minister, is already a member of parliament, and therefore there will not be any additional expenditure. Please, that is begging the question. We all know what happens in government. So we are, all that we are doing is to help the government or encourage the government to reduce expenditure on additional members of the executive. That's all we are saying.
But
so even before they went for the vetting,
Yeah.
You recall that the leadership of the minority made it very clear that they were not going to recommend the approval.
In fact,
many of you even criticized us that why were the leadership of the minority doing the vetting when they had already determined that they were not going to approve them. So this is not anything new.
Now, if I can come in, Honorable Benjamin Podo, the question we are currently discussing is the issue to do with why you are even still bent on holding up positions like the Minister for Agric and Trade. Ministries you know very well, they are very key to the economic sector, a sector that's been dealt a very big blow recently. Why is that not possible, that these ministers are given their job to do, and so they can help grow the economy from the agric and also the trade level? Why are you holding on to these positions too?
Well, you see, when the motion or when the report was presented today, speaking to it, the Deputy Speaker, the first Deputy Speaker, did not differentiate between Agric Minister or Minister of State in the Ministry of Local Government or the Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance. They did not distinguish, did not discriminate among them at all. They presented a bulk report. And the Deputy Majority Leader speaking to it mentioned their names one by one. None of them was excluded from the presentation they made today. So if it is a new idea that, help us to replace Trade Minister and replace Agric Minister, fine. They can make that presentation. I'm not in leadership, so I don't know whether those were the proposals they went to make to our leadership when they went into negotiations as we went on suspension of system. But again, the Agric Ministry, look at the number of ministers in the entire Agric sector. You have fisheries, you have general, you have crops. They are all there. They are all there. How many ministers do you want in the Ministry of Agri? And in trade, how many deputy ministers don't they have? So they are already enlarged ministries as far as ministerial positions are concerned. So why can't you shift one of them to become the substantive minister, and then you create a vacancy somewhere?
Are you not just holding up and flexing your muscles? You are in the minority, in all fairness.
Very, very reasonable. You are being very, very reasonable. You see, this country is the only one we all have. And we must rescue it. We must rescue the nation. You see, if the president agrees that, the ministerial people I have already are enough, so let's do with what we have. Let's shift maybe fisheries to take over the entire agric without getting a new person altogether. You see, if we can do that arrangement, is it not better for the country than keeping all of those ministers and then appointing another one? That's my opinion.
Now, it's an interesting development we're having now. And for those who do not understand what's happening now, Parliament is now reconvening. We understand that the Parliament, they held some form of a caucus meeting trying to weave out two main issues. Will the ministers be approved? Number one. Two, will we get the 3 critical bills government says it's important they are actually passed so that we can get an IMF deal? Will we get that also going through? We understand that Parliament, after a long break, is supposed to come back and have the conversation on these two. We know that the minority, and just being confirmed by the Honourable Member of Parliament for whole central year, they are very clear in their minds. They do not want any new ministers added to the current list. Indeed, they are demanding a reduction in the list of the current ministers. That is what they are demanding. They are also having some concerns with the other bills. Honourable Podo, I'll come to the other concerns the minority has been raising on the other bills. But if you could hold on a second for me. Let me bring in the Asante Atim North MP, who's very critical in the works of Parliament, and in times past has been talking about one minister's removal. But Honorable, if you can hear me, the Honorable Member of Parliament, Andy Appiah-Kubi, I want clarification on this matter. The minority appears to be insistent that reduction of numbers is absolutely key. They believe that's how they want to help save this economy and this country from collapse. And that you cannot say merely because one was a deputy minister, elevating one to a minister of state is any welcoming news. The other options they are put on the table. Why is that not acceptable? Why are those of you in the majority not agreeable to a possible reduction in the number of ministers in the country?
I'm not sure that anybody is challenging that request for a reduction of the size of government. But you also know that a deputy minister is not the same as a minister. And in the event that the president decided to even upgrade a deputy minister to a ministerial status, that person ought to go for vetting and parliamentary approval, as we are doing now. So it is not automatic that you can elevate somebody from deputy minister to a minister without these procedural problems. So if the concern is that the government is large, we need to reduce our numbers, that's a legitimate concern of theirs. But for now, we need somebody as a minister of agriculture and a minister of trade. Let anybody convince me that we don't need such appointments, we don't need such ministers within the economy. I'm not sure anybody will attempt that discussion.
No, but yes, I get your point. Sorry, you are explaining. Please go ahead. Let me not interrupt you.
We're also looking at the transfer of a deputy minister to the position of Minister of State in the Finance Ministry. This minister is already a deputy minister. So we are not adding to numbers in terms of government size, but we are only just changing portfolio and upgrading that portfolio into Minister of State. And mind you, Minister of State is different from a deputy minister status, and also different from the status of a substantive minister. So they carry different portfolios. And
well, I appear to have a bad line once again to the Honourable Member of Parliament and the Appiah-Kubi, who has been trying to defend the position.
We cannot just upgrade without going through the process.
Yes.
So if they agree that we need a minister for agriculture in the economy, we need a minister of trade in the economy, I don't see why they will frustrate this process. But I agree with him as he says that let us separate them and present them differently, and let us see how Parliament will respond to the application for endorsement. I'm sure, very sure, that if they are presented differently, we will not have a problem with the appointment of Deputy Minister for Agriculture and Minister of Trade. And we may not also have problems with the endorsement of a minister, Deputy Minister being transferred to the position of Minister of State, because all three new appointments, so-called, will not increase the size of government. Then we can look at the other deputy ministers also separately. But even there, let us see how Parliament will respond to that invitation to confirm them, and then we will see if Parliament will confirm or not confirm. So I agree with him that let's separate the various appointments, and then let's see how Parliament will respond to them individually, and let's see whether or not they affect the size of government. But again, if they say that they are suggesting to the president to ensure that the size of Parliament is reduced, it's a legitimate concern they're sharing. So maybe president will consider, but they don't have the luxury of power to change it by themselves. But let's make the appeal to the president, and the president, considering the appeal, may see where he thinks that he will be comfortable in effecting change and reducing the size of government to satisfy the expectations of all.
Is this soothing message to you, Honorable Podo? I mean, there appears to be some agreement that they can separate the ministers and present a first batch. At least, would that be okay for you?
Earlier, the presentation made did not convey that attitude. So let's go back and see what they have reached, what agreement they have struck out during the suspension of sitting. Then we will address it. But I, for instance, think that the Minister for Fisheries can take charge of the entire agri sector, because ministerial work is really management. You don't need a technical person to be in charge. Take the Ministry of Health. My friend, who is the Minister for Health, is a chartered accountant. We work together, but he's been able to hold the Ministry of Health. So if you have a minister already in charge of one aspect of agriculture, why can't you ask that person to take full charge of the rest of agriculture? You see the point?
I get you.
Let's look at the regional ministerial position. In the first term, the president had regional ministers and deputies. Now, he's cut off the deputy position. What's happening in the region? Are they going down? No. We have one person in charge of the entire region. Is the region going down as against when they had deputies attached to them? So if you have deputy ministers in all the sectors, even if you go to trade, it's not only one deputy minister. I think there are about 3 or so. So if you elevate one and keep the remaining 2 a deputy minister, can't they run the ministry? That's the question some of us are asking. You see? So I think, well, we are going back to the chamber. Let's see what agreement has been reached between our leaders.
I guess I need to throw in this particular matter. You in the minority, exactly what are your concerns when it comes to the other element too? That's the 3 bills, which you very much know government has said would help us get an IMF deal. Your president really wants this done by the end of the month.
Again, it is the intransigence of the government which is causing us to, hold these approvals. The point is that we are in a mess economically. Our finances are very bad. And we are calling on government, not only we in the minority, but also IMF and other international organizations which are watching how we are managing our finances, recommending that cut down expenditure. It's the same issue. Cut down expenditure. You are not doing it. And you want to rake in more revenue. The 3 bills together, when passed into law and they become effectual, the total amount expected to be raised from the pockets of Ghanaians is 3,961,000,000 Ghana cedis. That is the amount of hardship we want to impose upon our citizens again. So we are saying, why don't you cut down expenditure? If you cut down expenditure, then we raise a little revenue. That will narrow the fiscal deficit gap which we are facing. But the government is unwilling. It's just intransigent that we are not cutting on this, we are not cutting on that. We are not stopping this expenditure. We are not stopping that expenditure. It keeps on going. Many people have called for a review of our expenditure trajectory. But our president is not listening. It's not listening. You are just bringing more and more hardship. Now, if you look at the excise duty amendment, the amendment to the excise duty bill, you see, it has added more items which will now attract excise duty and therefore excise stamp duty to be affixed to them. So more and more items are being brought into the net for such duties to be imposed. Then when you come to the growth and sustainability levy, it's money being taken from existing firms. The firms which are crying that they are not being assisted to expand or to remain in business. You are imposing additional levy on them. You see the point? So if you want to raise revenue, but so as to mismanage, misuse, misapply from our point of view, you think that we will approve it? If I know that when I give you money, you will not use it well, you will misuse it, or you use it on things which are not relevant at this time of our life, you think I'll give you? I don't think so. So this is where we are. The government is not saying anything to agree with between us and the government. That is why things have come to a head.
But it's not normal. For example, the Energy Sector Levies Act was introduced in 2015. This was around the time that we had actually agreed on or probably had an IMF bill in place. When governments are hard up and they need to improve revenue positions, they actually go for taxes. That's one of the cheapest ways of doing this. And no matter how this was caused, we are in a terrible state. You agree already. Exactly what do you have against an attempt to get an IMF deal, which will necessarily bring us the relief we want when these taxes are the, let's say, vehicle to take us, or one of the conditions that's preventing us from securing a deal? And if you believe the president, by the end of the month, are you not the ones holding the nation back?
The solution is not only taxing our people out. If you are expecting the same people, the same firms to help you to overcome the difficulties so that we can get to the IMF and get the money, why do you want to kill them? They should die before they help you. How? So we think that these things are becoming draconian, and the president is not himself agreeing to, a reduction in his own expenditure. Even these new appointments that he is making, they are part of the increase in expenditure. They are part of the increase in expenditure. He's not ready to compromise at all. You see, when you are in a quagmire like this, you have to bend over and let's meet one another in the middle of the road. But he's not agreeing to that. So we also find it very, very difficult to keep on imposing hardships on our people. Every day pay this tax, tomorrow pay that tax. These were the people who promised that we are moving away from taxation to production. So where is the production? Where is the production? They are not rather taxing and taxing and taxing. Even things which were not previously taxed, they are not bringing them into the net.
I'll bring you back in to conclude your thoughts for me, but let me ask the Asante Atin North MP if he agrees with you that these bills are not a solution to our current financial crisis. We are being told without it, we are less likely to get an IMF deal. But the member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Benjamin Akufo-Addo, is convinced that taxation, as presented in these current bills, they are really not the way to go. I mean, at some point, we must get something done, right? Will this be a huge challenge to government's quest? We are told the IMF is not asking you to necessarily introduce taxes. The modus in making sure we rake in money is purely that of government, and government chose the tax option. Is it really true? If Honorable Akufo-Addo can hear me. Well, I guess I have a, yeah, I'm struggling to get Honorable Akufo-Addo on the line. That should be.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly now, Honorable.
No, okay, good. It is not a one-pronged approach government is taking in raising revenue to balance the budget. The government has taken other means, but these three are only three of the many that government is using to raise revenue. And
which means that, Honorable, if I may, which means that if we drop these three, you still have options on the table, which means that the taxes are not the sine qua non to a wonderful IMF program, isn't it?
Well, if you have a chain of solutions and you begin to drop your first options, what are the possibilities of getting the next options approved? We are seeking solution to a problem, and we have chosen this path that let's look at this and save something. Let's look at that and save something. Let's look at that. So we are proposing three bills, or efforts to raise revenue for the government. Is my good friend telling me that it is not prudent to raise revenue for government? I'm not sure that is what he's trying to put across.
What he's trying to say is that you are only shifting the burden to the ordinary Ghanaian by these taxes.
Well, is he telling me that in Ghana we are paying enough taxes and that the tax net is wide enough and that our tax revenue to GDP is enough for us to stop attempts to raise revenue? I'm not sure that is what he said.
What many people in this country have said, Honorable, if you can hear me out.
So many people are not paying taxes in the economy.
Very well, but the promise of government was to rake in more in the informal sector, not to heap more taxes on the already suffering manufacturing sector that we have in the country. That's what's being raised as the concern.
These are predominantly indirect taxes spread over items like cigarettes, items smoking, all of that.
Or fruit juices too.
Yes, fruit juices.
Yeah.
These are also indirectly an attempt to give advantage to our local producers of fruit juice. Now, if you look at the chain and the reason behind these revenue elements, you will see that, yes, we will raise a revenue by way of putting those taxes on such imports. Yes, we will also increase the competitiveness of local industries in those areas. So let us not be myopic in looking at the tax as tax to exact money from the citizenry. No, it is an attempt to also rake in revenue and at the same time also increase the competitiveness of our local industry. So I'm sure that probably my good friend, he doesn't have a good understanding of the reason behind these three bills coming to Parliament.
Even though he's a known and respected accountant and a member of the Finance Committee.
Well, it could be anybody, but understanding the issue is also a different matter.
I get you.
I'm saying that from the argument he's advancing, it appears he doesn't have a good understanding of the intention behind these bills. If we are putting up tax elements onto imports like fruit juice, we are saying tax the fruit juice so that you pass on the competitive advantage to the local fruit juice manufacturer. Is it not an incentive to local manufacturers in fruit juice and also trying to also increase our competitiveness in the area and also encouraging other local manufacturers into those areas? So if, for example, we put it there, government could also bring out a program to also support the local industries. So if you look at the whole chain of justification for these bills, you will understand that it is both revenue generation and also investment promotion for local investors. So let us not close our eyes in looking at some of these bills. Anybody who tries to frustrate this bill will be doing a disservice to the country, because we all know and understand that we don't raise enough revenue for our budgets. That's why we have gone borrowing and going into the bond market. So the government must necessarily expand the tax net to be able to bring in more revenue. And that one, I'm not sure my good friend will oppose to that idea. So let's separate the issues one from the other. And let us not put all of them in one basket and destroy it. Indeed, if you look at cigarettes, the bill on cigarettes, the excise bill, we are putting the taxes on cigarettes and maybe alcohol. And in every part of the world, there are taxes on such products. We want to discourage our youth from taking to smoking. And at the same time, we want to rake in revenue. So who says that it is not feasible to raise revenue from consumption of alcohol and cigarettes? Who says that? So who says that it should not be a government effort to discourage people from smoking? Who says that? So it is a double-edged knife that we are putting by way of that excise duty to try and increase the health status of Ghanaians, and also for those who cannot stop smoking and alcohol, just get some money out of it for national development. It could be paying back such monies into the health sector to improve health facilities so that people who go on that tangent and get sick can also get remedy.
I'm interested in a response to that. And give me a second. Let me hear from the Honorable Podo. I'll be coming back to you to wrap up on this conversation for me. I understand you have to go back to the floor.
Yes, we have to go back to the floor. But let me address my good friend Podo that it is not only to levy the people of Ghana to pay revenue to the government, but it is also to improve the competitiveness of local industry and also to improve the health status of Ghanaians by discouraging them from consuming such products.
Now, Honorable Podo, you have heard the response of the Member of Parliament for Asante Achim North. He actually has elevated it to the rationale behind introducing these bills, not just an IMF revenue guzzling tool. It actually does more than just that. Your response?
First of all, I don't know whether my honorable colleague has read the memorandum to the amendment bill. In one vein, the memorandum says they want to curtail the consumption of these things that he is referring to, the gas and all these things. And then in another vein, they say they want to raise revenue. If you reduce the consumption, automatically the revenue will also go down. So I don't see this kind of contradictory statements being reconciled by him in his responses. Now, secondly, I heard him say that there was tax to revenue, or tax to GDP. Yes. Why? It means that we are not collecting the taxes as expected. Now, there are so many taxes already in the system. Why don't we address the efficiency of collection rather than bringing new ones? Why don't we address the efficiency? See what ECD is doing. They have not increased tariffs now. They've done the increase already. But what they are doing is to go and collect the money. Why can't government go and collect the existing taxes so as to increase our total tax force rather than to bring in new ones? And you always have to examine or look at who or evaluate who are going to bear the burden of any tax. The tax burdens are going to fall on the same people. The same people. Now, the income tax amendment imposes more taxes on individual taxpayers. The teacher, the nurse who goes to collect his salary is not going to pay higher income tax. But it's the same person who is going to the market to pay for COVID-19 levy, to pay for this tax, to pay for the other tax. So by the time he gets home, the money he's collected from the bank is finished. So you have to examine the burden of the taxes that you are imposing before you just go on headlong. I think my colleague, I don't like the way he was making allusions. I don't understand the issues. If he does understand what exactly this means, he should examine the impact of these taxes on the individual citizen in Ghana before he continues to push for it. You see, the point is that he don't just go and pass a bill that, okay, pay this levy, pay COVID-19 levy, pay sanitation levy, pay this levy. And you think that people are not going to suffer from these payments. What kind of thinking is that? People are going to be burdened by these taxes, especially the indirect taxes are on goods and services which they receive in order to make living in their homes. So if you keep on increasing them, bringing additional ones, we used to even pay NHIL and UPfront as part of VAT, where businesses could get refunds. Now they are added as sales taxes, and upon that you go back and calculate VAT upon the sales tax that people have paid. You know, we calculate VAT on sales tax, that is the NHI levy, and then UPfront levy. We go and calculate VAT on these taxes again. If you see the way it's computed, these UPfront and NHI levy are added to the cost of the item before you slap VAT on it. So taxes is various layers, so that by the time you get from the bank to your house, your money is all in taxes. So my colleague has to go through and remember that they said they were going to do away with position.
The last question I ask you, Honorable Benjamin Podo, is do you have the numbers? This muscle you are flexing, do you have the numbers to see you through, or you buckle under along the line?
Well, we are in the house. Bring the numbers and come and defeat any position that we will take. We are in the house.
I am grateful to you, Benjamin Podo. Let me bring in the Honorable Andy Kwame Appiah-Kubi, the Asante Achim North MP. Honorable, we understand the MP for Dome-Kwabenya, Sarah Adwo Asafo, is not available today, or as of the time you took the break. Do you have the full complement of the majority in Ghana's parliament to proceed on this basis?
Les Adwoa, we have the full complement today, and that we are ready to do business today.
So forgive me, are you saying that Sarah Adwo Asafo is in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana?
I said less her.
Oh, okay.
Meaning she is not available, but apart from Adwoa, everybody else is available today.
I need to ask you also about the Honorable Mavis in Kansa Boadu. Is she in the house?
Mavis is in the house. Everybody is in the house except Adwoa.
How about immediate past chieftaincy minister? Is he also in the house?
He's also in the house. He is also in the house. So we are all ready. We have the full complement of our side ready to do business.
I am grateful to you too for your time this evening. MPs from Ho Central and Asante Achim North, in the very persons of Benjamin Podo and also Andy Kwame Appiah-Kubi, who joined me this evening on the stalemate in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana over whether or not MPs who have actually, and ministers who are being approved, will certainly be approved, or on the other side, whether those 3 bills government says will help us get an IMF deal will get the passage required for it to advance that conversation. Many thanks to you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on Upfront tonight.